My grid work. Let me start that again. Sorry, Deb. Good morning, everyone. It's September 11th, 2025, 9 a.m. The GridWorks team, myself, Margie Tatro, Kathy Boyce, and Deborah Shields are so excited and so thankful for the time that you are taking to give us feedback on this process, this journey that we've been on together since February regarding the stakeholder engagement in El Paso Electric Company's 2025 Integrated Resource Plan. So our plan for today is to record this meeting simply for purposes of note-taking as we, GridWorks, complete our final report for the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. This feedback will be included in some form in that report, and so we are recording this meeting. And the next slide shows our plan for today. Two objectives for this discussion are to collect feedback on the facilitated stakeholder process and to hear the stakeholder suggestions for future IRP stakeholder engagements. We know through our conversations with our contacts at the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission that there is interest in how this process can better serve all parties involved in integrated resource plans. So our agenda after this welcome is to share with you some of the themes and topics that are included in the survey that we designed to collect feedback. I know several people who could not be here today at this meeting have done us the favor and put their input into that survey. We'd like to encourage anyone who still wishes to add details into that survey document. Please do so by close of business tomorrow, the 12th of September. And we'll share the topics and themes that are included in that survey. They may also prompt your ideas of feedback you want to discuss today. But after we share those themes and topics, we're going to go around the Zoom room and call on each of you stakeholders who are here today and ask you first, what was successful? What one thing do you think should be noted as a success about our work together? After we've gone around the Zoom room with that question, we will go back around and ask what is one thing that could have been better in the process. After that, then we will open up the conversation for anybody who wants to add additional topics or comments to our conversation. And then as we will summarize toward the end of our session, we'll also leave some quiet time for anyone who wants to go to the survey document and put the detailed comments in there. That is our primary mechanism for documenting feedback. So give some time to do that. And then we'll adjourn by 11 o'clock. And we'll thank all of you for sticking with us in this journey that we've been on together. So with that, let me ask Kathy, is there anything else you would like to introduce before we get going? Okay, thank you. Then the next slide does summarize the, Kathy, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The survey that will also provide the QR code and the link in case you need that still today. It was in the meeting summary and in the announcement for this meeting. We're asking a couple of things about you and your knowledge about the resource planning process. We've got data from you when we started this process and are interested in how much that knowledge level changed over the past 6 months. Primarily, we'd like to know if you feel you had impact on the IRP as it was submitted to the Commission on September the 2nd. Well, the survey also asks whether you feel like you were heard, whether the diversity of perspectives represented in the process were inclusive, your level of respect you felt during the interactions with the utility, the understandability of materials, responsiveness of the facilitation team, your level of satisfaction with how your priority needs were handled, and then suggestions to improve the process going forward. Very, very important. Their survey also has space for additional comments of any topic, so encourage you to use those at your discretion. I'd like to thank the El Paso Electric team. We interviewed and discussed with them this Tuesday their impact, their input and feedback on the process. We're not going to take time during this workshop to share that, but it will be incorporated into our report. It was really useful to hear the utilities' reactions, perspectives, suggestions moving forward. So today's process is really focused on hearing from the stakeholders who were participating in the process. So with that, Kathy, I think you can take down the slides, and we're going to now go around the room. And I know there were a few folks who were here bright and early into our workshop. So I'm going to start with those of you who did log in early, and then we'll go around the Zoom room and ask for number one. The first question is, what was successful about our work together? So with that, I think Steve Fishman may have been the first one in attendance here this morning. And so I'd like to call on you, Steve, to respond. You can hold off your thoughts about what could have been better. We want to start with what do you think was successful so that we preserve those things that worked well. So Steve, would you like to begin? Maybe Steve has had to step away. All right, I don't hear Steve, or he could be having technical challenges, so we'll come back to him. All right, I think I'd like to go to Alan Downs. Alan, first on the list. We're pretty much at this point going to go alphabetical down the list of participants. So Alan, would you like to share something that you feel was successful about our work together?
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Excuse me. Compared to past IRP processes I've been involved in the past, it was largely an exercise of El Paso Electric educating us about the system and about their feeling about renewables and so forth. I felt this time there was a lot more opportunity for community input, and that the back and forth was better. I felt that we had a greater opportunity to speak in this version of it than we had in the past.
Great, thanks, Alan. That's helpful. Appreciate that. We'll come back to you next time around in what could have been better. So you could be thinking about that as we hear from others on what was successful about our work. Kara Lynch, I'd like to ask you to unmute and offer one thing that you believe was successful about our work together.
Hi. First of all, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity that this facilitated process allowed stakeholders. I do think it was participatory. It was an opportunity for stakeholders to learn more about the process. I think we, as stakeholders, we were allowed to ask questions throughout the process. I know some folks have voiced concern that not enough time or sessions were built in. So I'm sure EPE will adjust to that, or GridWorks may. But I do think there were learning opportunities, and I appreciate that.
Great, thank you, Kara. We appreciate your engagement. Chris Hickman. Chris, would you like to share something that was successful about our work together?
Chris, sorry, yeah. You're muted, Chris.
Unmute, sorry. So this was the best stakeholder process I've ever been involved with. It's in the essence of foundationally watching the interaction and actually watching both sides of whatever the issue was, people being willing to listen and actually watching opinions change and taking productive steps forward to address those. And so I think that while nothing's ever perfect and everything can always be improved, out of 40 years of doing this and being, whether it was from a legislative perspective or inside the utility or as a vendor, or having literally been able to sit in every seat for this process, I think that what I saw in this process was very well done. And it allowed everyone to speak, and it really gave the opportunity for shared learning and opportunities to move forward in a way that I've just never seen before. So again, not everybody gets everything they want ever in life, but I think just in general, I think that this process and what I saw from the people involved, that number one, stakeholders are a hell of a lot more educated than they've ever been, which is really, really great. Because it allows for deeper, detailed conversation, and it allows for the opportunity for both sides to learn and listen from each other and hear expresses of where things could or should go forward. And I was just overall impressed with all of the people that have participated, their professionalism and the interaction, willingness to have very candid and very difficult conversations, and being able to move things forward.
Great, thank you, Chris. We appreciate that and your active involvement in this process, so thank you. I'd like to turn to Daniel Vaughn. Daniel, if you might come off mute and share something you believe was successful about our work together.
Yeah, hey everyone. This is my first time participating in a process like this, so I appreciated all the learning opportunities, specifically being able to hear others' opinions in the form of the breakout room discussions and other larger group discussions, because as I mentioned, this is not something that I had any background on before this, and I appreciated, learning not only from the authorities, but also from other stakeholders.
Great, thank you. We were glad you and your colleagues were able to participate, Daniel. Appreciate that. I'd like to go to Dean Wine from the union representative of IBEW. Dean, would you like to share something you feel was successful?
Yeah, this is my first time in a process like this also, and so I didn't chime in a lot, but I learned a lot, and I thought it was a very thorough process, and everyone was very respectful, and it was just interesting to be a part of.
Great, thank you. Let's see, I'd like to turn to George De La Torre from SWEEP, I believe. George, would you like to share something you feel was successful in about our work together?
Hi, everybody. No, I just heard a lot of feedback, positive feedback about the meetings, and just listening to what the stakeholders had to say and trying to implement that as much as we possibly could. So just heard a lot of really positive things.
Great. Thank you. Glenn, I think you're on from Third Act, New Mexico. Would you like to share a success?
Yeah, so I just have to start by saying that it was just unfortunate that the only 2 times I was out of state in the last 6 months were the 2 days that you had full day workshops in El Paso, and I'm sorry I couldn't get there and meet people, but I feel like I also missed a big chunk of the presentations and interactions. But given that, I'll also say that I'm one of the few people who was part of the PNM stakeholders process, which I think was the first time this was done under the new rules with GridWorks and so forth. So my bar was a little higher, I think. I had seen all the interaction of all the stakeholders and a pretty good level of engagement. And honestly, I'll say PNM's approach is significantly different than EPE's approach, and I had to adjust to that. And I'll say one of the things that I really liked was the access to modeling. Ben and the other guys at EPE. Of course, I'm I'm an engineer and I have modeling background, so that's more what I care about. And so, in P&M's case, I felt like the consultants were harder to get access to, and in this case, consultant, at least E3, was central to the process, and so that was nice to be able to have that direct interaction. I think that's all I'll say about that, because again, of my limited engagement. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. I'm sorry you couldn't attend the 2 workshops in person, but obviously your engagement throughout the process through our virtual meetings was super helpful. So thank you. I see, I know we have a few participants that are listening in today, some DOE fellows from that are on assignment at the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. And I know that group is learning about this process, and I won't call on them specifically for feedback on this process, but when we get done with the questions, we'd invite any of those fellows or representatives from that group to ask any questions you might have of the process. So Kathleen, we'll skip yourself and Arthur for now, and we'll just keep going, but come back to allow questions if you have them. And I see Stephen Fishman is now on camera. Stephen, we are going around the Zoom room and great. We're asking for what is one thing that you feel was successful about our work together. So Steve, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I felt E3's involvement and Ben was very helpful, particularly in the modeling, and gave a really strong sense of the difficulties there are and the limitations and strengths. And I thought that for me, that was really helpful, and I learned a lot from it. And I did like the fact that people did talk very respectfully and very frankly, and I think that was all very helpful to the process. And I do believe that over time, and this is for all parties, is that I did see people listening and listening in a positive way, and that viewpoints shifted over time, and that's great. It shows that people are thinking and learning and interacting in a constructive way.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that, Stephen. Appreciate your engagement and your efforts to coordinate the comments and thoughts throughout the process from your group that's based there in Las Cruces. So thank you. Orland Whitney from the PRC Utility Division staff. Orland, I believe you're the only person here in person from the Utility Division PRC. Would you like to add anything you believe was a success about our work together?
Well, I think I see Judy on the call too, Judy Anker also. But yeah, I think, El Paso Electric was as transparent as you can be. And I think that was beneficial. I'm a El Paso Electric customer and stakeholder. However, in this process, I'm not paid to be a stakeholder. I'm paid to be a regulator. So that's kind of why I've kind of said it time and time again that the NMPRC is not a stakeholder. We're a regulatory body. So if any of my if there are any circumstances that happen to me as a customer that inform my engineering analysis, I'll let those be known. But yeah, I think you all did a fantastic job guiding this process of stakeholder engagement, and I've got no concerns. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Orland. Judith Ammer, would you like to add anything about success about our work together? I know you participated in a number of our workshops.
I don't really have anything new to add except that I really appreciate how hard GridWorks and EPE worked. And yeah, there's nothing perfect, but I do think this is a give and take process, and it really has become what I think the commission envisioned when it enacted the new IRP rule.
Great, thank you, Judith. I see also, I'm not sure I know the organization for P. Chavez. P. Chavez, would you like to come off mute and remind us of your organization? And at this point?
Sure, no problem. My name's Patrick Chavez. I'm with New Mexico State University. And, primarily from my end, having never participated in one of these, considerations, I learned a lot. And I would say mostly just understanding a little better, the various entities that are quite different than us. As a large power user, and we do make our own in-house power as well. So, load shed is a big piece of my consideration, but I did learn a lot about maybe challenges I had never considered from some of the other participants.
Great, thank you, Patrick, for being here and for participating. I think that the final stakeholder I see on the list is Yifan Wang. Yifan, would you like to share something that you feel was successful about our work together?
Yvonne is actually one of our analysts. She's with the group. She wasn't a stakeholder.
Oh, thank you, Emmanuel. Appreciate your I do remember meeting her. Sorry for that error on my part. Great, thank you. Lots of great team members. Okay, now let's shift gears. Did I miss any stakeholder who wanted to offer a success about our work together at this point before we shift to the things that could have been better? Great. Okay. So let's shift gears, and I'm going to try to follow a very similar pattern of calling on folks for this is a really important part of this conversation. What is something that could have been better? And both the utility and the GridWorks team have talked about many issues that could have been improved, but we really want to hear from you stakeholders of what could have been better. So Alan, if you are willing to start us off on that conversation again, Alan Downs, on something that could have been better, we'd appreciate it.
I'm afraid that I am not prepared to offer criticism that I can stand behind. I apologize. I'm sorry.
It's totally okay, Alan. We want to invite you to think about that. If there's something that you want to add into the process, or we can come back to you at the end of this conversation, or you can send it to us separately through the survey that Deb, I think, put the link to the survey into the chat. And we're happy to take criticism and suggestions for improvement through that survey. So that's another opportunity if you wish to take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Kara Lynch. Kara, would you like to share something that could have been better?
Sure. I think other stakeholders may add on to this, but there were times where it seemed like GridWorks just had to get through the process, and folks had more information that they wanted to add or questions to ask. And so I think that may have resulted in feelings that the process wasn't as robust or open as it could have been, even though it was quite open. I think there's just more opportunities that could be worked in for stakeholder engagement.
And Carol, was there any particular set of topics that you felt were perhaps shortchanged?
I think there were a couple of sessions, maybe the two before this, where it seemed like things were needing to move along, right? You have a schedule. And there might have been opportunities for stakeholders to discuss demand side management a little bit more robustly.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful, Kara. Appreciate that specificity.
Yep.
Chris Hickman, anything you feel could have been better?
See if I click both buttons this time instead of just one. So I think this is a very obviously detailed and difficult process. And I think that, again, we'll all continue to applaud Ben. He's just really great at being able to translate a lot of the complexity and be able to answer difficult questions and be able to work through that. And I think that was great. My feedback's probably going to be a lot more specific just due to depth, but I think that throughout the course of this, there were a host of questions on, well, legally, we can't do this. Whoever we is, the commission can't take this position, or EPE can't take this position, or the IRP requires this. And I think that many times a large preponderance of the call was like, we're just, is that true? And so I think that it would be well served if there was a little side bucket where legal actually participated in this from vetting out some of these things, like, in the IRP, thou shalt only do these things, or those pieces that come out. And I think that if those kinds of issues were vetted and being able to cite, this is the requirement that the utility has, or this is the requirement that the commission has, as those things come up, there's a little sidebar that those things are collected and actually reported back on to help people understand the rails that are put on the different participants by law, by regulation, and how those things move forward. I think a lot of people said things that people didn't understand that perspective, and I think that would be a really nice add to the process to be able to provide clarification to everyone about what those specific things are, so that people are working from the same baseline throughout the process. And I think overall, I'll just maybe mirror a little bit of Kara's comment that sometimes it did feel really rushed. There seemed to be conversation that needed to happen. And I know Lord knows, none of us have anything to do. And, there's never enough time to make all of these things happen. But I did feel like on several different occasions that it was a little bit rushed, in the sense that we were doing things. And we could have potentially pulled back on some of the presentation to leave time for more conversation.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Those are super helpful comments. Daniel Vaughn, would you like to share something you feel could have been better?
Yeah, I really appreciated Chris's answer there, especially for myself, who's a first time participant in such a process as this one. Trying to understand all the constraints, including the legal constraints about what is actually legally possible, and how that fits in with the stakeholder conversations that were ongoing. So I felt like others have mentioned, one of the better parts of this was that people were able to voice their opinions, but being able to decipher, what opinions or what steps forward are actually legally and to a lesser extent technically feasible, would be super helpful, additional context to have for someone like myself.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. That's helpful. Let me now shift to Dean, I know, Dean, you mentioned you were new to the process, but is there anything from your perspective would have been better for you and your organization in this?
I'm kind of like Alan. I don't really have any criticisms that I can substantiate. I thought it was a pretty clean process. I know it's been mentioned that some things maybe I won't say get glossed over, but they for time consideration, uh, not everything necessarily always got discussed, I think, as much as some people wanted, but there is time consideration, so you got to work within that. But I really thought it was a good process overall.
Great. Thank you, Dean. I appreciate that. Let's go to George De La Torre. Anything from your perspective or from this perspective of your organization that could have been better?
Margie, this is Leslie, but George De La Torre is with EPE too.
Oh, I have a different
Yeah.
De La Torre. Okay, thank you, Leslie. I was thinking of Ramon De La Torre, who's from Sweep. Okay, thanks, Leslie, for keeping me
Sure.
straight. Then Glenn, I think we're on to you, Glenn, of anything you feel could have been better.
Yeah, so I'm gonna echo what Kara said that I mean, personally, I have an unanswered question. So that's definitely a real thing. And going back to what P&M did, they had a running question and answer page. So you could always go look, was your question already answered? Asked by someone else. And I think it came to a conclusion where all questions were answered and it was something that could be done offline. So it wasn't constrained by meeting time. So I don't think that exists here. That would be a nice thing. And I'm just looking. Oh, okay. And so, having missed, two of the crucial sessions, then I'm relying on recordings and slide decks that are posted on the GridWorks site. And what I'm finding is that there isn't a topic index. So even like the titles of the slide decks are just kind of, this is a date. But each date had associated with it, an agenda and like 1 to 5 topics. And so if those were listed on the GridWorks site, if those were in the title of the documents, it would help somebody like me go back and find where these are. And so I think what I'm going to end up doing is resorting to loading all this stuff into a large language model and asking the questions of the large language model. And then if I don't have the answer there, I think my only recourse is to intervene in the case and say, this question was never answered. And try to get EPE to answer it through the docket. And I don't even know if that's possible. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. So I guess that's my main comment is, just trying to get the information I would need to be able to comment or be happy with the process. Thanks.
Great. Those are super helpful and constructive comments. Glenn, thank you for offering those ideas. Steve Fishman, would you like to share anything that you believe could have been done better throughout this process?
I'll echo the comments that frequently, to me, it seemed like things were rushed. We had to kind of move on. And people were not necessarily able to get out their full thought. And sometimes it felt like hitting the schedule became the primary goal as opposed to people being able to get out their thoughts. I think one of the things that got in the way of that was that the presentation time from EPE maybe could have been cut down shorter. And I guess, and this is just a personal perspective, maybe we got too model focused. Models are great, but I think of them more as a thought tool than an answer tool. They make you think things through. And what pops out of a model, you may want to use, you may not, but the real value comes from the thinking it makes you do. And I think we got more maybe hyper focused on model outputs as opposed to the thought process that went into it. I do think that early on, and I'll speak for the group, for myself, but I think this was true for several of the Las Cruces individual stakeholders that I was talking with and working with, is that there were issues, particularly echoing Kara on the design, on the demand side, that came out quite early. And as a result of the process, and I don't know how much it was because of the result of the process, or maybe EPE wasn't really ready to go there. But the demand side issues came out very early as a strong concern. And certainly for me and some others down here, that felt like kind of the core issue we needed to cover in this IRP, given the conditions out in the marketplace. And I don't think the process did as good a job as it could do in recognizing that and bringing it to the fore. And I guess I think of the IRP process as maybe the best chance for the public to get involved in that decision making and get there. And the process was maybe not as flexible as it could be in terms of seeing what the stakeholder interests were and kind of getting them out front in the first place. So I don't think there was any intent to try to ignore anything else. I just think the process just didn't flex enough to focus on that. And I think we could have accomplished a little more in that area if we'd been able to do that.
Great, Steve. Thank you for those comments. That's super, super helpful. Orland and Judy, anything from your perspective that could have been done better from the perspective of the observer, regulator, stakeholder role?
So yes, stakeholders were given assumptions and results, but the traceability between the two was likely not always obvious. So I'd suggest showing more kind of intermediate steps, sensitivity cases or side-by-side comparisons that would help participants see how feedback or assumptions influence the outcomes. So I think that would be helpful in the future. But overall, I think you all did a fantastic job engaging with stakeholders.
Orland, can you say just a bit more about your thought on this traceability between inputs, assumptions, and
Sure.
outputs?
Yeah,
Could
and
you expand on that a little bit?
I think Ben Elsey did a very good job in demonstrating some of, for instance, I think and this comes from, I'm currently an EPE customer participating in a demand side management program. And so understanding what the demand side program currently is saving ratepayers would have been helpful. Having those as part of the slide deck, I think would have been helpful. That would have kind of communicated that EPE is already doing a ton of work in this area. And I think that, that I've benefited from the demand side management program as a customer. So, I think that but that's just one, I'm in one customer class and I'm one person. So this isn't kind of a, you know, the IRP is a planning document. And so, you know, the other thing that may be beneficial in the future, and while not legally required, more expert level engagement, maybe reaching outside of stakeholders to engage with some expert level contention on several of the topics may be helpful to maybe help stakeholders who are not well versed in the material understand the basis for all the technical rigor that El Paso Electric, you know, postgraduate level professionals do to deliver this material, I think would be very helpful.
Great, thank you. That's good expansion. Judith, Emma, is there anything else you wanted to add on something that could have been done better? Okay, maybe Judith has had to step away. Judith, give you one more chance.
Oh,
Is there-
I'm sorry. I was
go
trying
ahead.
to unmute. The suggestion about the list of questions asked and answered, I don't know the name of the person who made that and referenced P&M's IRP process. That sounds very helpful, especially for people who may not be able to attend all the stakeholder process.
Great, thank you. And that was Glenn that offered that suggestion. So thanks, Glenn, for putting it out there, and Judith for endorsing it. I think Pat Chavez, perhaps you are our stakeholder who hasn't had a chance to speak about something that could have been done better. So would you like to add anything, Pat?
Sure. I mean, I think even kind of listening to some of Orland's comments, like, you know, it's just not everybody is really well versed in some of the finer details. It's a very technical process, and not everybody operates in that realm. And it's a hard thing to navigate because I do I do side work, adjunct professor at the community college, so I'm always having to figure out how do I convey very technical things to a broad audience, especially if they're coming in from scratch. And this was actually my first you know, session in this type of a, you know, deal. And so I was even trying to understand at what point does it truly connect with NMSU, because we're a unique customer to El Paso Electric. We're the only ones on a specific rate. So some of the things that are discussed, either we don't participate in. And so some of the stuff I was just mostly listening to, and it wasn't really targeted specifically to like maybe some of the bigger users that may have a unique rate. I'm not sure, but we may be the only customer that has a specific university rate that is only served to us. And I'm not even sure like the White Sands and the Hallmans have their own unique rate, but so I was struggling to find relevancy, I guess, but I didn't want to drag down the process because I was actually able to learn a lot about some of the other aspects, because I'm still a residential customer, and you know, I have different you know, opinions about that. But you know, I'm representing New Mexico State University, so I was you know, it's kind of hard to tailor it specifically to me. And I guess maybe if we had more customizations for breakout sessions for large customers like myself, because we do have very different considerations and opportunities, especially for these load management programs. And we could be a great partner asset to these large utilities.
Great, thank you. So having a place to have conversations amongst those of you who are large customers might be what would be helpful for you in the future.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you, Pat. Thank you. Before I open the floor to anybody who wants to add a comment, we'll start with stakeholders and then give anybody else a chance to speak. I'd like to ask you if you have an additional topic of feedback, whether it's suggestions for improvement. In particular, those are really important to us, or other topics, particularly if you wanted to comment on whether you believe that your involvement had impact on the IRP report as it was filed on September the 2nd. Hopefully, many of you have had a chance to look at least the executive summary and the statement of need and action plan of that document. That's where there's real content that I think this group would be interested in looking at. So if you've had a chance to look at that, we'd like to know whether you feel like you had impact on that final document. We observe, as facilitators, we observed that there were some very important and responsive changes to stakeholder input that occurred between our last August meeting and the filing of the report. So we were very pleased as facilitators to see that, but we would be very interested in stakeholders' views about whether you feel you had impact. So with that as a preamble, let me ask anyone who has an additional comment or question to please raise your hand, and we'll call on you to share any additional topic you wanted to add at this point. I see a hand from Steve. Please go ahead, Steve. Steve, I believe you're on mute. So there you are.
There we go. I was pleased to see, particularly on the statement of need, some of the late changes and adjustments that EPE made, which showed me that they were listening. It took I know from my point of view, it felt like it took a lot of hitting on it and maybe, feeling maybe a little frustrated at times and feeling like I was pushing pretty hard. But on the other hand, I feel like EPE did make a real response to a lot of the issues that came up, and even those that came up at the last minute. And I really appreciated that. And which was terrific. And on the action items, I'm going to be putting in some comments about where we should get more assertive and aggressive. But it was good to see that those issues were acknowledged and in a way that we'd never seen before, and put into the statement of need and in a way that they never had been before. And so I do feel like stakeholders and then the stakeholders, customer stakeholders here in Las Cruces did have an impact, and hope to have more impact going forward because we're greedy like everybody else. But that was pleasant to see.
Steve, thanks for sharing that. Glenn, please go ahead. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I wanted to tie together three different threads. So Stephen had said there was a lot of focus on modeling, which, again, as a modeler, I would love that. But what I wanted to point out is if you talk about tracing the assumptions to the results, I think that's part of what somebody like me who really pays attention to the modeling looks at, is, how did these results come out of certain assumptions? And so then getting back to the IRP, and I did take a look at it and went through certain parts of it, and my own impact. I know at one point I said, please provide a table of, I guess, resource parameters and assumptions. And, I would hope that that would have been in there regardless of whether I asked for it, but it is in fact in there. But then getting back to the assumptions, what's not in there is what E3 calls their RECOST, RECOST database of assumptions. And I could be wrong, I could have missed it, but I'm pretty sure it's not in the IRP. So there's a whole set of generic assumptions that E3 used to come out with their modeling results. And I specifically remember it having to do with the DERS programs, the customer side, demand reduction, demand response programs, modeling, use some generic assumptions. And so that remains opaque as far as I can tell. So, that's why it's important to trace back from the models to the assumptions and to understand the assumptions. And I wish there was more said about the assumptions. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Glenn. Any other additional comments or questions? Kathy, feel free to ask anything you feel we haven't addressed, but let's, any other hands for additional comments we haven't covered?
Sorry, reactions. I was trying to remember where the hell the raise your hand was. Sorry. It's okay if I go.
Yes, Chris, please do.
I'm just really encouraged by the ISP versus IRP commitment from the utility. And I know this is something that's starting to happen in the utility industry, but the in-depth thought process of really saying, what we do is for this entire thing we call a grid, it's all tied together, and taking only one aspect of it and studying it is sometimes leaving a lot to be desired. And so the commitment from the utility to do that, stakeholders to dig in and really provide positive feedback and start El Paso on their journey of moving in that direction, I think was really, really great to see, because it's a much bigger picture view. It's what fundamentally, I think in general, utilities try to do, but it's not a transparent thing because everything is so separate. But I think that was a really great addition to this process, and really looking forward to see that evolution from additional utilities so that better decisions can be made overall.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift to move from IRP to ISP, isn't it? But it is, I believe, a good step forward, and I know the team has been embracing that. So thanks for offering that, Chris. Yes, go ahead, Emmanuel.
I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you very much to all the stakeholders. We really value the feedback, and my team and I are furiously taking notes because we know that this is an ever-evolving process, and we do take your comments to heart, and we know we can always do better, and we will. And again, this is just the beginning of this journey. There's going to be a lot more room and moments for interaction with stakeholders, so you haven't gotten rid of us yet. But thank you, everybody. We really, really do appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Emmanuel. And I see, before I call back on Steve, who's got his hand up, I see that a couple other members of your team and your leadership team, Dave Hawkins and I believe Cynthia Henry, are on the call. Would either of you like to add a comment at this point before we go back to some other stakeholder comments?
No, again, I was not able to attend every meeting, but the ones that I did, particularly the ones in person, I agree with a lot of the comments I heard today. That I think the interactions were very respectful. I think we took some things in, and I understand Steve's comments about continuing to beat on us, but I hope there's an understanding, and that there's things that we feel as the utility responsible for this ISP and IRP that we need to follow, and things that we believe as the company that would propose solutions that are most defendable in a regulatory environment. All that plays in. But I think it opened up our eyes on the possibility of a lot of things as well. And I thank everybody for their input.
Thank you, Dave. I see, Judy, you've come on camera and off mute. Did you want to add something?
Yes, just to echo the sentiments by Emmanuel and Dave. Again, we do want to thank all the stakeholders. We know that this was supposed to be a 6-month process. It was actually 7. And while we do recognize some of the comments, and it seemed like this process was a little bit short, and stakeholders wanted some more opportunities to talk. We are trying to follow all of the rule and statutory requirements, and it is a 6-month process. So we understand that may be a little difficult to try to get all the information, and we're just really try to get everybody on the same page, trying to let them know about our system, and try to identify what the needs are, but at the same time really collaborate with the stakeholders and listen. And I think as a utility, we've been successful in this IRP because we're transitioning to an ISP. So that was, a significant lift. But also, as you all can see in our statement of need and action plan as filed with the PRC, we really did take those comments that were provided by stakeholders and your input and really try to incorporate all of that. So we hope that you guys felt that as a utility, we really took your comments to heart and tried to act on not only the best interest of the utility, but for our stakeholders and our customers.
Great. Thanks, Judy. I see, Steve, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
So this is really a comment for EPE. There's a lot of things you guys have to be careful about. And a lot of times, my sense was that during meetings, you were trying to be as open as you could be, but for various reasons, you needed to be a little bit guarded. You don't want to commit the company to anything that is not on the agenda. And sometimes that limits what you can say, and I completely understand that. But I think there may be some ways that going into a meeting, you can look at some of those issues internally in a way that allows you to be less guarded when you get into the meeting. And I don't know exactly what that is, and I've been where you are, and I understand the challenges. But I think that'd be, if there's a way that you could do that, or a way we could build that, or that warning into the agenda to help out with that, that would be terrific. And I know that more things emerged as the process went on. But again, just anything we can do that lets everybody be a little bit less guarded and still feel safe would be terrific. So just wanted to get that out there and still let you know I appreciate all the work that you guys put into it and how far we came.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Give another couple minutes for any other comments, and then we will move to the final piece of our agenda, which is to give those of you who haven't had a chance to fill out the survey some time to do that. Before we go there and do and let you know where we are, I see, Arthur, you've got your hand up. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Arthur O'Donnell, outside consultant to the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. I have 3 observations to make, 2 of which are on firm ground because other people have talked about it, and one of them is my issue only. Right, I have not participated in all of these things because of the restrictions that the commission itself put on advisory participation in this. And we're very thankful that the utility division staff has been able to make the time and devote the resources to fully participating in this. And I think that overall it comes out to be a better outcome because of that and everybody's stakeholder participation. Judy Amer raised a most important comment, is that she felt that this process, the stakeholder engagement process leading to the IRP filing, is what the commission had in mind when we changed the rule. And I'll just give a brief sense that before we changed the rule, IRPs were a black box. And utilities often came into the process with everything already fully baked. The point of the stakeholder exercise is to get more people to understand the process, right? So that we cut off the intervention necessary when the IRP is filed, but also to give meaningful input. And what I'm hearing is that we're approaching that. We're moving in the right direction. Just as in the Constitution of the United States, we're trying to get a more perfect union, we are trying to get a more perfect IRP process. One of the big things that people raised was time, feeling forced in this and trying to keep on a schedule. The 6-month limitation probably was ill-expressed in the rule because it says no later than 6 months, before filing. You have to have this stakeholder engagement. We know that that's where we can provide people with more flexibility. And I'll just point out that in the upcoming Public Service New Mexico IRP that they're aiming to file a year from now, they're actually going to be starting their stakeholder engagement process in December, if all goes well, right? And GridWorks will be working on that as well, so that to give really a full 9 months, right? And that's really what we're coming to determine. The one issue that I had a problem with, and again, I wasn't in on all the meetings, was the interaction between the RFP that EPE publicly announced under the old rule and that announcement coming in the middle of this process in a new rule. We figured out how to deal with it. In fact, EPA went to market before even getting an answer from the commission. So that was a little bit troubling. But I didn't feel in this process that the utility really fully described the interaction of going back into market under old rules with going to market under new rules. And that every megawatt or megawatt hour that you commit to under this old regime cuts into the process to develop what we need going forward. Now, I know it's a whole matter of we need this power now, right? And it just seemed to come up, even though EPE knew that they were going to do this back in February, it really wasn't announced to this group until June. And I listened to that, and it really was a very perfunctory way of introducing this idea with really no conversation around it. It may have been brought up again in the all-day meeting that happened a couple of weeks later. I was unable to attend, but I really felt that that makes it difficult for the commission to fully process this proceeding versus what's going on outside of this proceeding, because they are essentially going to happen simultaneously. So that was my beef, and we'll take it up with EPE going forward. But all in all, I will say that we are on the road to a more perfect IRP process. Maybe it'll be an ISP in the future. I completely understand where the utility is coming from, and that's another one of the goals, is to break away from these silos of planning and to have it more comprehensive. We just weren't able to do it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? Because of the understanding that's necessary among stakeholders. So I try and stay away from speaking for the commission, but in this case, I can speak for the commission. We very much appreciate all the effort, all the time, all the thought and involvement that the stakeholders have brought to this. We very appreciate the cooperation spirit that the utility has brought to this, and we very appreciate the work that GridWorks has done to hold it together. We still got some things that can improve, we know that, but it's really been, I think, gratifying to see that we're reaching the potential of what this kind of process can be. And that's for me. And I will just say, don't put the fellows on the spot. But we do have 3 new fellows and a new advisor, and they've all taken the opportunity to kind of check in here to understand this, because they are going to help the commission make the new rules for the next generation. So thanks, Margie. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur, for your insights, comments, and for your leadership in bringing the fellows to New Mexico to assist all of us New Mexicans in moving to the future. So we welcome them at any point. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to have them call me or contact me, and we'll explain whatever we can about the process if there are questions on that. So thank you for that. I see there's a question in the chat from Orland. Orland, I think we're not going to take time to answer it, but let me just state his question was his curiosity about who else is participating in EPE's current DSM programs. So let me ask Emmanuel or Judy or Dave, is there a place Orland can go to find that information?
Let me be the first to bow out from answering that question. And I'll leave it to see if Judy or Emmanuel has a response to that.
We can reach out to our key customer accounts group, Orland, and try to get you that information. So we've taken down the question and we'll send that to you.
Great, thanks so much.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
Sure.
Margie, if I might interject, another thought is for those on the call, if you're willing to just self-elect, if you are in the DSM program involved, maybe just drop your name in the chat to connect with Orland. And then Margie, if I might, just another little housekeeping. We had a few folks who came a little late, and maybe just give a space for those who missed the first part of the meeting. If you have thoughts of what was successful or something that you would change, or just some general comments for us. If you came in late and didn't have a chance to contribute earlier, maybe if you'd like, go ahead and come on camera and turn off mute and share with us.
Great idea, Kathy. Thank you. Anybody who didn't get called upon, who wants to offer feedback on the process? Kathy, I'm not seeing any hands, or are you? Okay. Well, Kathy, would you mind please sharing the slide number 4 from our deck as we move to this last phase? As I mentioned, the feedback that some stakeholders have already provided through the survey tool is extremely helpful. And we've asked for some very concrete responses on things like, do you feel you had impact? Did you feel you had impact on the IRP? Was the process inclusive of the appropriate people? We would like to leave some time, since we're not going to take the full 2 hours for this meeting, for those of you who wish to put input into the survey. It's available by this QR code or the link shown here, and Deb has put the link in the chat as well. We're happy to do that, and so we will leave the, I think what we'd like to do is leave 5 minutes right now for people to go in there in case there are questions about the survey, or if there's something that prompted your additional comment that you wanted to make in person here. So we are going to leave 5 minutes for that. We're leaving this survey open only until close of business tomorrow, Friday, because we are working on our final report to go to the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission by the end of September. That report will also be posted on the GridWorks website, but we want to take some time over the next week or two to process your feedback and think about recommendations for the future. So let me be quiet for a 5-minute time. Please, if you have questions about the survey or additional comments that are prompted from the survey, we will give time for you to come back onto camera here in 5 minutes, and we'll do our final closure at that point. So let's take a 5-minute recess to allow you to go into the questionnaire, the survey. We'd like to ask our EPE and E3 teammates to refrain from filling out the survey. We've interviewed you all in a separate format, and we appreciate your input, but let's hold this particular survey response set to stakeholders. So any questions about how to access the survey? Okay, we will come back at 10:15 to do our closure, and expect that to take no more than 5 minutes to give you back some time for today. So we will reconvene here at 10:15 a.m. All right, we will come back together. Please, if you need more time or have a chance today to complete the survey, or if you've already responded and you have some additional thoughts, there's no problem in going back and submitting another response. You may have an email link when you first submitted that allows you to modify your answers, but if that doesn't work, feel free to submit another response. I have 2 acknowledgements we'd like to do this morning. First of all, there were 4 stakeholders that cannot attend today's meeting that have provided feedback in the survey, and I'd like to give credit to Don Kurtz, Dwight Eggers, Randy Rankin, Dwight Eggers, Don Kurtz, and Cynthia Mitchell have all provided some comment, and 3 of those comments are incorporated into the survey. We're encouraging everyone who has comment feedback to put it into the survey mechanism. It's the best tool for us to be able to process that input. So thank you to those who couldn't be here who have also provided feedback. The second acknowledgement, I'd like to turn the podium over to Ben Elsey from E3. I think Ben has a statement and an acknowledgement he would like to offer at this point. So Ben, could you please go ahead?
Sure. Can you hear me, Margie?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so just throughout this 9-month-long process, you've heard a lot from myself, from Emmanuel and Judy. But I just wanted to kind of bring to everyone's attention that there's a whole team of analysts who work under Emmanuel, who have been working extremely long hours, many evenings, many weekends. It's for their dedication for getting through all of this modeling work, all of these results that really made this IRP come together. So just cannot thank them enough. They've had to spend time away from their family to get this work done. So I just want to highlight their dedication and their efforts throughout this process.
Yeah, Ben, thank you for adding that. We many times forget all the faces behind the work, and appreciating that from everyone here is appropriate to do now. So thanks to the EPE team, not just the folks we've seen on camera, but all those behind the scenes who've been working so hard to do analysis and to answer questions and to be available as resources during many of our meetings to be able to answer questions on the spot. We recognize that's a significant level of effort, and it's greatly appreciated. So with that, I would like to give a final thank you to everyone for participating. Please don't hesitate to contact us, hopefully by the end of this week, if you have additional comments for feedback. Please look forward to the rest of the process. If you want to follow the IRP through the PRC process, as we reviewed last time, the 30-day for public comment on the IRP has started. It was effective the day the document was filed, September 2nd. So please feel free to take advantage of that opportunity, either in your support comments or in your continued question or concern, if you have any. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. Kathy, would you like to add anything else, you or Deb, with administrative announcements or housekeeping items?
Just to recognize everybody's time and effort and dedication to the work. It has been 40+ hours in meetings, and recognize that as a huge demand, and really grateful for everybody's thoughts and constructive input.
Great. Thank you. Deb, would you like to add anything?
No, would just like to thank Michelle for all her hard work and coordinating everything with me and the EPE team. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Well, we will post our report when it's finished on the GridWorks website. We'll let stakeholders know when that's available, so you'll be able to access that if you'd like. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you in a future endeavor on behalf of the state of New Mexico. Bye-bye.